tonight. Thank you to those who are here. We really appreciate you joining us. I think it's going to be a fabulous panel. Welcome to Joint's community panel discussion on traditional altars for Day of the Dead. My name is Lisa, and I am the event coordinator for the Day of the Dead this year, all of the festivities. If you walked into our lobby, you will have noticed many altars being set up, traditional altars, beautiful displays from many families here in the Valley, as well as we've had several high school art and Spanish teachers lead projects for their students to put on display in our lobby as well. So there are about 15 tables full of some traditional altars and artwork for Day of the Dead. I'd also like to invite everyone to come back on November 2nd. We'll have our key performance in the front lawn area, and it will be fabulous. So we hope that you can join us then. Well, tonight's moderator is Juan Saldana. Did I do it right? Close. And Juan is from the Idaho Commission on Hispanic Affairs. He'll be the moderator tonight, and he will introduce the panel. So thanks again for being here and coming and joining us.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm excited to be here. Welcome to the Day of the Dead traditional altar panel. We have a really great panel today for you today. We're going to be celebrating from 6 to 7 today, and so please follow us on Facebook Live. We have a bunch of stuff, so if you have any questions throughout, you can always send us our questions there. And so I want to introduce our panel. We have a really impressive panel today. And so we have Dr. Sonia Galaviz, who was born in Idaho. She's a triple Bronco, go Broncos. She earned her BA, MA, and doctorate from Boise State University. She's also an adjunct faculty at the College of Education of her alma mater. She's an elementary teacher at Garfield Elementary School. She was awarded the National Education Association Member Benefits Award for Teaching Excellence. Oh, that's a good title. And National Teacher of the Year 2017. So please welcome Sonia. Next we have Patricia Canto, who was born in Mérida, Yucatán, Mexico. She is a cultural and faith promoter in the community. She was a co-host of the radio show called Aprendemos Juntos, Let's Learn Together, in Idaho for 10 years. Patty was honored as one of the Idaho's Women of the Year in 2012 by the Idaho Business Review, and she's made her home in Idaho for the past 16 years. Please welcome Patricia Canto. And last but not least, we have Stephen Hatcher, who was born in Denver, Colorado. He's been in and out of Idaho since 1990. He is the state folklorist and director of the Folk and Traditional Arts Program at the Idaho Commission on the Arts. He has an MA in American Studies from Utah State University and a BA in English from the University of Utah. Please welcome Stephen Hatcher. So we're going to start off with a really simple question, hopefully. And so I'm going to ask all three of the panelists for them to let me know, when was the first time you heard the Dia de los Muertos? And I'm going to start off with Sonia, since she's right here.
Thank you, Gwen. When I think about my first memories of Dia de los Muertos and then seeing ofrendas and calaveras and things like that, it would have been as a child going into people's homes or into churches and seeing, some of the altars. I don't know that I became fully aware of all the pieces, like what I was seeing, the details and the history behind it until much later, but it was something that was in the background of my childhood. And something that those pieces, the playful sugar skulls, the pan dulce that set out the photos, became something so tender and sweet, and something I recognized as later that I wanted to continue and have an altar in my home and do it in my classroom and things like that. So it would have been since childhood and not really fully knowing until later the beautiful meaning and significance behind it.
Okay, Stephen, same question to you.
Yes, it was similar. My association is kind of a series of experiences and memories starting also very young, and not necessarily connected immediately to the Day of the Dead around this time in November. But when we were young, we lived in Phoenix for a couple of years, and we would take trips down to the border to Nogales and places like that. And I very distinctly remember the cemeteries down there, and you know, Mexican cemeteries just in general are always a little more lively and colorful than they are up here, and that always struck me. And then I lived in Guadalajara for a couple of years, in 2002 or 3, somewhere in there, and that's probably when I first experienced the day itself. Then after that, I taught a course and lived in Santiago, Chile, for a few years, and one of my students did a project, a fieldwork project on altars in Santiago specifically, but in Chile in general, where people set up similar altars to what you see at Day of the Dead to commemorate people who have died in maybe a car accident or sort of a crime scene within the city, something like that. And that's kind of when this idea of death and the Latin American sort of association with death all kind of made sense to me, and commemorating the dead and honoring the dead. This sort of
Honoring. And Mrs. Anton, you have some stuff you want to share about when you first heard about it and what it means to you.
Well, I do need to say I come from Yucatan, Mexico, and in Yucatan we learn in our everyday life our culture and our faith. So for me, my first being conscious of Day of the Dead would be on All Saints Day, which is on the same day, November 1st and 2nd, and we will go to Mass. I'm Catholic. We will go to Mass, and you will see people bringing photos of their families there. And when I recall on those memories, the first altar I would say I saw at my parents' house was when you open the main door, there was a turntable that they had displayed the whole year of all family members. And you will start talking about them, and on November 2nd, we gather to have a meal. So in Yucatan, more than the altars, it's the meal. And it's similar to our Catholic faith. We gather at church around a table. So that's where you start talking about and becoming familiar with those that have left. And I had some, okay, so here I remember in our having the meals, I will ask my mom, Mommy, what is that? I think that's my first memory of being in presence of everything related to Day of the Dead. There was another question that you had planned, and that's why I have the other slides. I don't want to take more time.
Oh, you're
But
fine.
yeah,
Do you want to talk about here when it says, "What is death?"
okay.
The quote.
So I think it was so much of the impression that it caused on me, a positive impression, that little did I know that my first actual altar that I was going to build was for my own son. And that happened in the year of 1995, and it's when he passed. And the following year, it's a way of healing. It's a great gift to heal. And it came to the point to me that I have a permanent altar in my house where I reflect not just on the physical death of my son, but on our everyday, on our daily death that you have, like perhaps getting married, you're dying to being single, and if you have to let go of your marriage, you are dying to that you believe was going to be forever. So in the altar that you will see in my house, and you have that, I think, a slide before, one, a couple of them before, that I have it in my house, and I play with the meanings and the traditions of my own state, Yucatan, and of my faith. So in my altar, I have things that speak about my home, my heart, and that's my altar. And I went a little bit beyond that into becoming part of the spiritual care team in one hospital in Bay Area. And the more you interact with people, I was part of the program of Nobody Dies Alone, to keep companion to those that are terminally ill, that they know they are about to pass, to become at peace with their lives and with the idea of death. And you will learn, if you want to work a little bit on that, about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. You may know her. And when they asked her, when she was writing, she has a lot of books about death. She said, I have told my children that when I die, to release balloons in the sky to celebrate, because I will graduate. For me, death is a graduation. Next one. And for me, my question before my son passed, even though he could not say it with words, he asked me, Mommy, what is death? And our dialogue was, when he wondered, is it like waking up, or is it like falling asleep? Is it the beginning, or is it an end? And my answer was, my son, death is whatever you want it to be.
So there's 6 objects that are traditionally put in altars, and I was asked to talk a little bit about what they all mean. So we're going to go a little short presentation on what they mean. The first object that you probably see at most altars is the skull. And often skulls are made of granulated sugar, merengue powder, and water. The mixture is molded into the shape of a skull and then decorated with brightly colored ornaments. The skull represents the people who have passed, and so it's paying honor to the people that have passed in our lives. The marigolds, and we're going to have a little bit more discussion about marigolds later, but they are referred to as flower of the dead, flor de muerto. It's believed that the scent of these bright orange blooms help attract the souls to the altar. And then papel picado is another one that you probably see quite a bit, and it's believed that the delicate nature of this paper is symbolic and fragile of life, so the holes allow a way for the souls to travel through and visit, and so that's why you see a lot of the paper cut, like, when you're a kid, you make the little snowflakes. It's that same kind of paper, but made out of tissue paper. And then pan de muerto, which we'll be serving here next week. And this is a soft and sweet bread. It's designed with a circle and limbs to mimic the shape of skulls and crossbones. And it is finished with dusting of sugar. It's one of those number of foods placed on altars to kind of feed, offer food to the souls coming to visit you, to attract them to your altar. And then salt, and this one was a new one to me. It's to help quench the thirst of the souls. Salt is set out in a pattern of a cross, so souls won't be corrupted. So I'm going to, again, go back to Patricia Canto and have her talk about Dia de los Muertos from Yucatan, from the state you're from.
So in Yucatan, I think I was born with a microphone included. So in Yucatan, Dia de los Muertos is called Hanal Pishan. That's Maya. And that means the food for the holy, the food for the souls. Going back to what I said before, the whole thing centers on inviting our beloved ones to come back to share some joy again with us. And the way to attract them is we begin on October 31st, late at night, when we're celebrating Halloween here in the States. In Yucatan, we put some candles around them. And this happens mainly in the little towns. Now in the city, now in the capital, we're taking advantage of the traditions to attract tourism, and it's working. But we will put candles from the cemetery to the houses, so the soul remember how to get back to home. And we invite first the children. They come in the morning, early in the morning of November 1st. And then on November 2nd, we invite the adults. What is behind the altar? Well, in the altar, what we put is everything that will make our loved ones know that we still remember them, what they used to like, what they used to enjoy, what they used to enjoy eating. Mainly we have the traditional food that we have. It's a kind of a tamal. It's called mugbi pollo. Mugbi means any kind of food that you cook in the ground. So we will make out of corn this dough, and it's full with pork, and it's full with chicken, and the whole family gets together and we share stories of the ones that were invited and that we're going to be welcoming. It's an event when you have little ones and you have grandpa telling the stories, to the grandchildren, and we keep passing over and over the pictures of what we have, of the family members that we have that they have passed. If you have not seen Coco, you want to see Coco. Now, one of the stories that we have, and we can talk a little bit more about that when the event is over, it's called Relleno Negro. So we have a lot of folk tale. Relleno Negro means stuffed with dark. And the story behind that is that when you have the body of a dead person and you wash the person, you're washing their sins away. And you cook a special meal using that water, and the people that came to say their goodbyes, they will eat a little bit of that meal that is being offered as a way to let the person live this life without having to carry their own sins, and we keep the bad that they did to help it heal and make it right. And at the end, you have, so if you feel bad after going to Yucatan because you think you ate too much, you can keep going. We're going to say the last one. Just keep going. Okay, so one before. No, you don't have it there. So anyhow, if you feel that your stomach is aching, it's because perhaps the meal that was cooked had some of that water of a sinner that was left.
So my next question goes to Dr. Galaviz. As a teacher, can you tell us how you celebrate not just the Dia de los Muertos, but different cultural events in the school setting?
I think being able to embrace the families and getting to know the families and who they are and celebrations and traditions that are important to them is one of the many highlights of being an educator. So I do home visits with each and every child before the school year starts. So before the first day of school, I've been into the home, I talk with the families, we talk about what's important to them, and I'm starting right then to build that relationship and trust. And, I'm able to learn a little bit about cultural significance of different holidays, things I need to know and be sensitive to. At Garfield, I teach children from all over the world. And so I need to understand what Ramadan is and when it's going to fall, because I need to know what the children are fasting during the day and to be sensitive to that. I also, need to understand cultural significance behind different symbols that the, children may, maybe one group finds offensive and another one that, doesn't think anything of it. So but I do that through the connection with the family. They help guide me and they help educate me so that I can in turn embrace that and validate it and share it in the classroom. So many celebrations we have, or just sharing each other's cultural experience and our traditions, have a home in Ms. Galaviz's class because we want to know each other and we want to love each other and understand each other. But Dia de los Muertos is something very special to me because I grew up doing it, and I had a little brother that died as well, and he was 3 and I was 5. But being able to have this celebration and this tradition in my home, it's something that his memory brings me joy, not pain. I'm able to, that healing that took place throughout my life, and so I'm able to share stories, and so we build a massive ofrenda in my classroom. So we have a huge altar in my classroom right now. So this whole week we've been building it, and students bring in pictures and tokens, and one of my little boys, he brought in the favorite food of his abuelo, to call the spirit forth. And we have candles and marigolds and skulls, and they love it so much that they get to participate in that. And maybe it's a part of their culture. I have lots of little mexicanitos and kiddos from, Latin America, but then I have children from Syria and Southeast Asia and the Congo, and they're equally as interested in this experience. And so we learn together and share together. And so every morning this week, we've been sharing pictures from our altar for those who want to share. And it's such a beautiful moment where the kids are like, oh, hey, I lost my grandma, and this is what I remember about her. Or they talk about a beloved pet that passed, and and it's so sweet in the moments, and they're so tender with each other. And I wouldn't, replace it for the world, because kids are getting to know each other and love each other and understand each other, and we build that larger family, which is Ms. G's class.
That is beautiful what you're doing with your students. So, Stephen, question for you is working in your job. How do you compare this celebration to other culturally celebrated stuff that you do? And you've been all over. It sounds like you travel quite a bit. How do you compare this celebration to those? And then tell us a little bit more about what Idaho Art Museum is doing, or the Commission for the Arts is doing for the other ones.
Right. So I too brought a couple photos. I can just talk about sort of another one of my experiences was living in far southern Germany, in Bavaria, in the town of Berchtesgaden. And this is another kind of very similar sort of holiday to Day of the Dead, but this happens around Christmas time. Also takes place within the cemetery. It's, again, not quite as lively and festive maybe as a Mexican cemetery, but beautiful nonetheless, where people light candles at the grave sites every day throughout the season, but most importantly through the week starting before Christmas and then going all the way to New Year's Day. This is the big celebration, where starting at again, it's another amalgamation similar to Day of the Dead of kind of pagan customs and rituals that center around the winter solstice and farming, that sort of thing, combined with more sort of structured, formal religious customs, Catholic customs, also as well as sort of, like you see in Day of the Dead, pop culture. And this is when sort of the Krampus, everybody is, really keen on Krampus these days. This is when Krampus comes out and chases, rotten kids around town and this sort of thing. People dressed up as big bales of hay, which is, a leftover from pagan rituals. And then starting at 3, there's basically like this local militia, this local gun club will be up on the side of the mountain, and they'll shoot off these black powder guns at 3 o'clock every afternoon for the 2 weeks, until New Year's Day, and that is to keep the bad spirits hovering above, so it doesn't come down into the cemeteries, into the town while people are milling about. So it keeps the evil spirits at bay. They're honoring the dead in the cemeteries. They're celebrating the solstice. Again, it's this big amalgamation of pagan customs, Catholic rituals and traditions, as well as elements of pop culture.
Thank you. So my next question is going to be, I believe, it's going to be for all of you. So, and I'll just start this way and we'll move here to some quick answers. Who is La Catrina and what does it mean to you? Because I know that La Catrina has a different significance to everybody else. So I'm going to start with Patricia and then we'll move this.
So what I know.
The microphone.
So the Catrina was drawn by Jose Guadalupe Posada, the Mexican artist. His intention was not to make the Catrina for Day of the Dead. Indeed, he drew it to protest the government. It was the equivalent of our night show now that we have, to see what's going on with politics and we laugh about it. That's what he did on Britain. And he was doing this at the beginning of around 1910. When he started that, but it became famous when Diego Rivera drew it. He made a mural, and he had Jose Guadalupe on one side, then the Catrina in the middle, and he was on the other side. They also used it to send a message to people when, after the Hispanics came, into Mexico, many people became embarrassed of their indigenous roots, and they tried to dress up as people from Europe. And people that started making money, they used all this dressing to make the difference of the poor people. So the Catrina that we all know that she looks very elegant, it was a way for Jose Guadalupe to make fun of the people that forget the roots, who they are. Because he said that death is the greater equalizer.
Right. What I appreciate about La Catrina, again, is that she's kind of this all-encompassing symbol for a whole series of events that take place around Day of the Dead. I think I'm no scholar, but as I understand it, there are roots of Aztec myth in La Catrina. There are a series of stories, and there's a goddess, an Aztec goddess that sort of guards kind of the underworld, if you will. And I think this is reflected in the La Catrina. La Catrina, like as was said, she's on the outside she may wear these elegant European clothes, or different versions of La Catrina may just be sort of humble street, fruit sellers, or none of what they're. I think the idea here is what they're wearing on the outside is really irrelevant. That underneath it all, we're all just kind of a bag of bones, and very much equal.
Yeah, you're right. So,
Yeah, so I love the history of La Catrina, and I think just to add to that, I think it speaks to the playful nature that not only Dia de los Muertos, but just the relationship with death in Latin America, that a little more playful, a little more lively, that there is perhaps a fluidity, a connection between the afterworld and here, and that spirits and those that have passed have personalities. And so when you see La Catrina or you see Catrin, like the male version, it's playful, they're dressed up. They're sometimes, in pop culture is made it like where, they're wearing punk rock shirts, it's like they're all of these things. So I see it as a very playful relationship with the dead, and something that's not to be frightened. It's to, again, joyful. And so the Catrina you can see all the time, and I think she was immortalized in Diego Rivera's mural. But we see that notion of skulls and skeletons in lots of Mexican art and lots of folklore that it doesn't make me sad, or it's not meant to be threatening or creepy, but more playful and joyful, as is this holiday.
thank you. So next we're going to take questions from the audience and online. So if we have any questions, Norma will be bringing those up, and we'll be taking questions here from people here live too. So if you have any questions, raise your hands, and Norma will give you a card, or she'll bring it up.
Alrighty. First question.
Or Norma, we can pass the microphone around too if you want to do that.
I was just curious, maybe how the altars have changed over time. Having this tradition carry over so many generations, has there been significant change over time with how they're displayed or portrayed, or is it more just personal and there is no real set form to to it in any way, I guess.
And I'm sure we've all seen different altars. What I know about it is that it is personalizable, like people make it their own. And there's also different personalities to altars in different states throughout Mexico and in Latin America. So what you were sharing about the altar in Yucatan is a little different than what I've experienced, growing up, or maybe the altar that I built. And also the permanency. Sometimes people will have altars all the time, not just for Day of the Dead, where they're, memorializing or remembering those who have passed, maybe a family member in their home, and that picture, that altar, that space is there all the time. But I know I have been in different spaces, and depending on the person, or if it's inside a church, or if it's at the cemetery, it may look a little different. And so it would be amazing to go to all the different states in Mexico and see the way their cemeteries look and see how it changes a little.
Well, and to add to that, I would also say that the opportunity to use altars as we do with the Catrinas has been taken advantage of as well, in a very good way to send a message without saying words. You can make an altar of the dead, un altar para los muertos, to democracy, if you think that democracy is dying. You can do it for a politician, for an artist as well, or, for example, my daughter, she works with immigrants and refugees, and she received an invitation to decorate for Halloween, her own office. And she called me, she was like, Mom, what do you think if I do an altar? Because I'm Mexican, I'm Hispanic. Well, we have dual citizenship, but she said, I want to show my roots. Say, I think it would be a good idea. And she asked me, who should I dedicate my altar to? And I say, how about to the immigrants and the refugees that they die when they are attempting to come here? So we use the altars also to send messages on that way. You will see that evolution, and in the beginning it was not what it was intended for.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Hi, can you take us through a day? Can you take us through the day of when you wake up, a Day of the Dead? What's the process like? I've seen some kind of almost like parades and stuff going on through the night. I would love to know from when you wake up to nightfall what that looks like.
Well, I teach on Day of the Dead, so I get up and I go to school. But with my students, a typical Day of the Dead is that we have pan de muerto, of course, and that we share more stories, and we may add some candles to our altar. And really, it's a time just with my students sharing and celebrating, and just sharing with each other the stories if anyone wants to. But with my family, that's because a picture of my little brother and my abuelos are on the altar. We always call each other. My family, we don't all live here in Boise, so we do a group call or a Zoom, honestly, and talk to each other and share memories and kind of think of what they would be doing. And would my little brother have 2 kids or 3 kids or whatever? So we reconnect that way with joyful memories, and it's lovely. I look forward to it every year.
Well, I have been out of Yucatan for almost 34 years, and I have no family here. So for Day of the Dead, I pretty much spent it on my own, with my husband. We had our kids here. We all cooked the pollo, the traditional meal that we have at home. Before I had children, when I was newlywed, my mom, or every single year until she passed, she would bake them for the family, as she did when we were all home, and she would mail it to wherever I was living at. And I miss that part of her, but as we were sharing, Sonia, it's a beautiful day. It's full of joy. If you ever have the opportunity to travel to Mexico, I would say go to a small town. There are so many places to pick from. Of course, I'm biased. I would say go to Yucatan and experience that with the poor people. I think we all value life. We all think about death and how we approach it, but I think we learn to live death through the people that are truly, truly, truly happy and grateful of every single detail of life. It would humble you. It would humble you how they will sacrifice the only pig that they have to cook a meal that in their thoughts will feed the soul of the beloved ones that will come. And when you say, how do the dead eat that meal? No, you trap them with the smell. And you imagine them just grabbing it. We have a saying that says, yesterday the dead came and they ate grapes. Now it's our time to eat grease. You eat the real food. So do take the time to do that.
Any other questions? Norma has the microphone over here.
I know you mentioned there's a few different like traditions across Mexico. Just curious if there's any more examples of just the variety from state to state.
Well, if you go to Mexico City, you will have a blast. Now, for Day of the Dead, they do a parade that I think Macy's Thanksgiving parade in New York will put people to shame. So you want to do that, that's new. I would say that in the last years, so I don't know when the one in Mexico City started. Again, going back to Yucatan, they came out to copy the idea. They started planning on that on 2008. For 2018, they had 60,000 people coming to town to that event. Now, if you want to go to Michoacan, you want to go to Pascuaro, that's an island. That is something that you ought to see. You start first seeing the monarca butterflies, going there, bringing the souls, but then you will see at night the families getting together with what they cook, with the flowers, getting on the little boats with candles and going to the cemetery at the island of Pascuaro. You want to do that. In Guadalajara, you go to the cemetery and you spend the night there. You go, you clean the tomb, you bring flowers, you bring tequila, you bring the food, and you share stories about the person that is laying there listening to you. So the message is we need, yes, to leave some fun stories behind us for people to laugh at, but also some beautiful stories for them to remember and clean our tongue with a tear of love.
Thank you to the panelists. You guys have been answering questions really well. Up next, I'm going to invite Lisa up to come and talk about the monarch of the butterflies. And while she's coming up, I also want to remind everybody that on Tuesday from 5 to 7:45, Jump's going to have all kinds of Dia de los Muertos celebrations. So come on down. It's free. It's family friendly.
Thank you, Juan, for moderating, and thank you, panelists. Wow, those were some kind of tears to my eyes. Thank you for sharing those wonderful stories. You know, I remember when I was a little girl here in the U.S., we would go on Memorial Day, right? And we would put flowers out to my grandparents and uncles and aunts. And it seems like in the U.S., that custom has kind of fallen away more so than it was when I was a kid. And I think that the Day of the Dead kind of has rejuvenated it. And the difference is the Day of the Dead seems to be much more joyful than Memorial Day. It was more of a kind of a somber day or sadness when we would visit the graves. But thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for your questions in the audience. This year, when we were getting ready to plan the Day of the Dead activities and events, I had stumbled on a video from National Geographic, Will Smith. If you Google it, you might find the little version of it. It's about 4 minutes long. And it follows, in addition to celebrating the Day of the Dead, the migration of the monarch butterflies. And in the video, it talks about the butterflies leaving Nebraska and Iowa, Midwest Canada, and their journey back to Mexico to Michoacan, did they say that? And how they land on the Day of the Dead. And those butterflies, the tradition is that the souls of their loved ones are on their wings. So here at JUMP, we integrated all of the monarch butterflies in our images and our graphics. You can see it. That's why I'm wearing the crown. And you'll see it on our stage and throughout the JUMP site. And interesting enough, the monarch butterfly is the state of Idaho's insect. So good tie-in for us in Boise, Idaho, and for ecology too, to try to bring monarchs back. Also the marigolds, in watching this video, the marigolds, the smell of the marigolds is very strong and it attracts the butterflies. So another cool thing about seeing the marigolds with the butterflies throughout our JUMP campus. And that is it for tonight, and I thank you all for coming. Okay, one. Sorry. Also, before we go, I just want to let you know the Commission for the Library sent us some books that they want to recommend if you want to learn more about Dia de los Muertos. And so, and these are available at any library according to them. So they said, Katrina's Day of the Dead by Adriana Morales Marin. The Festival of Bones, a little bitty book for the dead by Luis San Vicente. Un Barilete, A Kite for a Day by Elisa Amado, and Gustavo the Shy Ghost by Flavia Z. Drago. And like I said, according to the Commission for Libraries, these are available at any library for you to check out. So if you want to learn more about Dia de los Muertos, you can check those out, and they'll give you a bunch of information, not just about the day, but also what the altars mean, the significance of having an altar. And I'm going to have Norma give some. So do you guys, yeah, just have So I'm just going to have you guys say a little goodbye and speech.
What did you say? We have 10 minutes, so they are welcome to talk again of whatever they couldn't talk by the time. So, if you
Okay.
Can we ask questions to the public?
Yes.
okay, now it's from Sonia to Patty.
I love it.
Go ahead. No, we can start that way. That's fine. If you have a question.
Yes, I have a question. I'm gonna put two beloved people on the spot because I don't have to see them here. So Stacy and Josh, I had the blessing to have them stay in my house for a few months when I was not there. And it was a lovely experience for me, and I could not ask for someone better to be in our home, in our private space. I know you didn't get here when we started, but one, can you go back to I think it's my second slide. At the very, very beginning, you will know this when you see it.
Is it a picture or is it?
At the beginning, yeah, the second one with the altar. One there, no, there. Do you remember that? So if you're not familiar with our culture, that may seem weird or spooky. But there's a lot of meaning there, for me, and there is a lot of detail. And I don't know how that made you feel when you were in the house and what your thoughts were. Do you want to share your reflections? And there won't be any personal offense, like, indeed, it's my piece of art, and art, in my opinion, talks to each of us in a different way. So, can I give you a mic?
Yeah.
These are great people. If you don't know them, that's why I wanted to put them on the mic.
Yeah, thoughts too you can share, but no, it was actually really cool. Patty was very welcoming and just gave us the keys to her house for a while, so we were definitely pretty fortunate. But no, it was cool just to see all the decor from the Yucatan, and it was actually kind of interesting because we had just, I think, not too long before watched Coco, So we at least had context, so we were like, Stacy and I were both like, oh man, this is so cool, and like, we were looking at it all, and to us it was just like really cool to be able to see that every day, but it was kind of interesting because my parents came and visited, and they were like, what are the skulls for? They were like, this is kind of creepy, and I was like, you guys haven't watched Coco, have you? So, yeah, no, it was cool though, and I think people who visited, like my parents, got a little dose of culture in the process, which is always good. Any other thoughts?
Kind of, it's sort of related and sort of not. Like this isn't exactly where Dia de los Muertos story, but I had a friend growing up. Can you take this off? Sorry, guys. Good family friend. I just adored this person, and he had 2 kids, and he started taking his kids to the cemetery to have picnics, and they would choose like a gravestone of someone that they knew. They'd have to picnic there. And he did this for years. And we found out not too long before he died that he was doing this with his kids. And he told us right before he died that he was doing this to prepare his children for his leaving so that they would not see his death as just something horrible, but also something we're celebrating as he's going somewhere else. Kind of like what you said, Patty, made me think of like, it's what you make it. Death is what you make it. And he made it into something beautiful. So when I think on his passing, I don't feel sadness, I feel a lot of joy. And so when I saw your altar in your home of your son, I always thought of that friend. And it brought happiness to me. So it's kind of related, but kind of not, but I don't know, seeing that made me happy. Thank you. Thanks for letting us stay in your home. She has the most gorgeous home ever.
Thank you. Do you guys have any other questions you want to ask the audience? Sonia, Stephen? No? And then I want to have Norma come up and give it, we'll talk about what's going to happen next week.
Okay, all right. My name is Norma Pinta, and I am very, very pleased to collaborate as a consultant with John by the second year, organizing all this Dia de los Muertos event and celebration. So thank you for coming tonight. We are so excited. Thank you for all the people who are following us on Facebook and YouTube. I would like to invite all of you come to visit the exhibition of altars, very beautiful altars from members of the community who are honoring their loved ones. Some of them are organizations, some of them are families. We also have beautiful art displays on the tables from several schools. And also this coming Tuesday, November the 2nd, we will celebrate Dia de los Muertos in Jump by the 35th year. So we are so excited because it has been a tradition already for the community. And we are going to have a beautiful program, performers from 5 to 7:45. Mariachi children's band, dancers, folkloric dancers. We're going to have an acrobat, aerialist. We're going to have a contest for Katrina and Katrin, so little kids. And also, our highlight star is going to be the soprano Cecilia Violeta Lopez. She was born in Idaho, and we are very proud of her because she is one of the 10 top in the world sopranos. And for us, it's an honor to have her in the program, accompanied by her pianist, Betsy. So we are very excited and happy. I know that
having pan de muerto and chocolate caliente is part of the attraction. So thanks to the Idaho Commission on Hispanic Affairs that is collaborating this year with those delicious bread, Mexican bread, and Jump chocolate. Jump is great. Please come to this event. Thank you very much.
So that concludes our program tonight. I want to thank our panelists. They gave some amazing insight into what Dia de los Muertos and the altars mean to our culture, to Latino culture here in Idaho. So please give them a round of applause. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Bueno, ahora sí bien rapidito, háganle share y like para el video y compártanlo con más gente. Recuerden que aquí lo esperamos el 2 de noviembre.